What happens when a beloved daytime talk show host and a celebrity chef collide in the most unexpected way possible? The View has seen its share of heated moments over the years. But nothing could have prepared the audience for what unfolded when Fieri sat down at that iconic table. Before we get into what went down, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this story is going to leave you speechless. The studio audience was buzzing with excitement as Fieri walked onto the set, his signature bleached hair and flame-covered shirt drawing cheers from the crowd. He was there to promote his latest cookbook and talk about his expanding restaurant empire. The panel greeted him warmly, everyone smiling and ready for what seemed like it would be a light-hearted segment about food and fun. Joy Behar, sitting at her usual spot, gave a welcoming nod as Guy settled into the guest chair. Whoopi Goldberg kicked things off with an easy question about his new book, and Guy launched into an enthusiastic description of his favorite recipes. The conversation flowed smoothly for the first few minutes, with the hosts asking about his restaurants and his experiences traveling across America for his shows. Sarah Haynes asked about his family, and Sunny host wanted to know about his favorite hidden gem restaurants. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Just another celebrity interview on a Tuesday morning. Then Joy Behar leaned forward, and the energy in the room shifted. She had been quiet up until this point, but now she had that look in her eye. The one regular viewers know means she has something to say. She cleared her throat and asked Guy about a recent controversy surrounding one of his restaurant locations, where employees had complained about working conditions. The question itself was not unreasonable. It was the kind of thing talk shows bring up all the time. But the way Joy phrased it, with a slightly sharp edge to her voice, made Guy pause mid-smile. Guy's expression changed. He sat back in his chair, his hands gripping the armrests, and said he found the question a bit unfair, given that the issues had been resolved and the employees were happy with the outcome. He explained that running a large restaurant operation means sometimes things go wrong, but what matters is how you fix them. His tone was measured, but you could tell he was taken aback. Joy was not satisfied with that answer. She pressed further, suggesting that maybe Guy was more focused on his celebrity brand than on the people working in his kitchens. The other hosts exchanged glances. Whoopi tried to steer the conversation back to the cookbook, asking Guy about a specific recipe, but Joy cut her off. She said she thought it was important to talk about these issues because too many celebrity chefs get a pass when it comes to how they treat their workers. Guy leaned forward now, his jaw tight, and said he resented the implication. He told Joy that she did not know anything about how hard he works or how much he cares about his teams. He said he has spent decades building relationships with his staff, and that one resolved complaint should not define his entire career. Joy shot back immediately. She said that when you are in the public eye, you have to be held accountable, and that includes answering tough questions. She asked him if he thought being famous meant he should be immune to criticism. Guy's face flushed red, and he said he was not asking for immunity. He was asking for fairness. He pointed out that Joy herself had been involved in controversies over the years, and yet she sat there acting like she was above it all. The audience gasped. Sunny host put a hand to her mouth. Alyssa Farah Griffin looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Whoopi jumped in again, her voice firm, telling both of them to take it down a notch, but Joy was not backing down. She said Guy was deflecting, and that bringing up her past was a cheap shot. Guy said it was not a cheap shot. It was the truth, and if she could dish it out, then she should be able to take it. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The producers in the control room were frantically signaling to go to commercial, but the hosts were too locked into the moment to notice. Joy stood up. The audience went silent. She looked at Guy and said that maybe he should spend less time on television and more time in his kitchens, making sure his employees are treated right. Guy stood up too, towering over the table, and said that maybe Joy should spend less time lecturing people and more time listening. He said she had been talking at him from the moment he sat down, not with him, and that it was disrespectful. He told her he came on the show to have a conversation, not to be ambushed. The other hosts were trying to calm things down. Sarah was saying something about how everyone was passionate, and that was okay. Sunny was nodding along, trying to agree with both sides. But Joy and Guy were locked in a staring contest, neither one willing to back down first. Joy said she was not ambushing anyone. She was doing her job as a journalist. Guy laughed a bitter sound and said that calling herself a journalist was generous. Joy's face went pale, then red. She told Guy that he was out of line. Guy said she crossed the line first. Whoopi finally slammed her hand on the table, the sound echoing through the studio. She said they were going to take a break right now, and that everyone needed to cool off. The cameras cut away, and the audience sat in stunned silence, not sure if they should applaud or just sit there. But even as the commercial break started, you could see Joy and Guy still standing there, neither one sitting down, neither one looking away. When the cameras came back on, both Joy and Guy had returned to their seats, but the atmosphere had not cooled down one bit. If anything, the commercial break seemed to have given them both time to reload. Whoopi tried to restart the segment with a diplomatic tone, suggesting they move forward and talk about something everyone could enjoy, like Guy's favorite comfort: foods. But before Guy could even open his mouth to answer, Joy interrupted. She said she wanted to clarify something. She looked directly at Guy and told him that she had been on television for decades and had interviewed thousands of people, and she knew the difference between asking tough questions and ambushing someone. She said she was sorry if he felt attacked, but she was not going to apologize for doing her job. The way she said sorry made it clear she was not actually sorry at all. Guy nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. And then he said that was interesting, because from where he was sitting, it felt a lot like a personal attack. Joy bristled. She asked him what exactly he thought was personal about asking him to address legitimate concerns about his business practices. Guy said it was the way she asked, the tone, the assumption of guilt, before he even had a chance to explain himself. He said she came at him like he was some kind of villain instead of someone who had spent his entire career trying to lift people up, whether that was through his restaurants, his television shows, or his charity work. Joy rolled her eyes, and that small gesture set Guy off again. He said he saw that eye roll, and he wanted to know what was so funny. Joy said she was not laughing. She was frustrated because she felt like he was playing the victim card. Guy leaned forward and said he was not playing anything. He was telling her how he felt. And if she could not handle that, then maybe she should not be asking provocative questions. Joy shot back that if he could not handle being questioned, then maybe he should not be a public figure. The audience was completely silent now, everyone watching this train wreck unfold in real time. Alyssa tried to step in with a question about Guy's charity work, clearly hoping to shift the mood, but Guy held up a hand. He said he appreciated the attempt to change the subject, but he wanted to finish this conversation with Joy first. He turned back to her and said that he had been nothing but respectful when he walked onto this set, and he felt like she had been gunning for him from the start. He asked her directly if she had a problem with him personally, because it sure felt that way. Joy looked him in the eye and said no. She did not have a problem with him personally. She had a problem with people who act like they are untouchable. She said that fame and success come with responsibility, and when you have as much influence as Guy does, you need to be willing to answer for your mistakes. Guy said he had answered for his mistakes multiple times. But Joy was not interested in his answers. She was interested in making a point. He accused her of using him as a prop to prove whatever argument she wanted to make that day. That hit a nerve. Joy stood up again, this time grabbing her notes off the table. She said she was not using anyone as a prop, and she resented the accusation. She told Guy that she had been fighting for workers' rights and holding powerful people accountable long before he ever put on a chef's coat. Guy stood up too and said that was exactly his point. She was so busy being a crusader that she forgot how to have a normal human conversation. He said she did not know him. She did not know his story, and she had no right to judge him based on headlines and rumors. Whoopi stood up now, trying to physically position herself between them. And she said they needed to wrap this up because it was getting out of hand. But Joy was not done. She looked at Whoopi and said she was tired of being told to calm down every time she asked a hard question. She said this was what the show was supposed to be about. Real conversations about real issues. And if that made people uncomfortable, then so be it. Guy said uncomfortable was one thing, but what Joy was doing was something else entirely. He said she was being hostile, and there was a difference. Joy turned to the audience and asked them if they thought she was being hostile. A few people clapped, a few stayed silent, and the rest looked uncomfortable. Guy shook his head and said asking the audience to take sides was exactly the problem, that she was turning this into a spectacle instead of a dialogue. Joy said he was the one who turned it into a spectacle by getting defensive and refusing to take accountability. Guy said he had taken accountability. She just refused to accept it. Sarah Haynes jumped in, her voice shaky, and said that maybe they both had valid points and maybe they could agree to disagree. Joy said she was not interested in agreeing to disagree. She wanted Guy to admit that he handled the situation poorly. Guy said he would admit that when Joy admitted that she had been unfair to him from the moment he sat down. Joy said she had not been unfair. She had been honest. Guy said honesty without respect is just cruelty. The audience gasped again. That line landed hard. Joy stared at Guy for a long moment, and you could see something shift in her expression. She said quietly, almost too quietly for the microphones to pick up, that she did not come here to be cruel. Guy said he did not come here to be disrespected. They stood there, two strong-willed people who had both dug their heels in so deep that neither one could find a way out. Sunny host, who had been mostly silent through the whole exchange, finally spoke up. She said that maybe both of them needed to take a step back and recognize that they were coming from different places and different experiences. She said it was possible for Joy to ask tough questions and for Guy to feel attacked, and both of those things could be true at the same time. It was a thoughtful attempt at mediation, but it was too late. The damage was done. Joy looked around the table at her co-hosts, then out at the audience, and then back at Guy. She said she thought maybe it was time for her to take a real step back. The studio went dead silent. Whoopi asked her what she meant by that. Joy said she meant exactly what it sounded like. She said she had been doing this show for years and she loved it. But maybe it was time to let someone else sit in this chair. Someone who would not be accused of being too harsh, too opinionated, too much. Guy's expression changed completely. He said he was not asking her to quit. He was asking her to listen. Joy said she had heard enough. She took off her microphone pack, the sound of the clip unnapping echoing through the studio, and she placed it carefully on the table. Alyssa reached out to touch her arm, but Joy pulled away gently. She told the audience that it had been an honor to be part of their mornings for so long, and she hoped they would continue to watch and support the show. Then she looked at Guy one last time and said she hoped he learned something from this. Guy said he had learned something, that sometimes people would rather be right than be kind. Joy did not respond. She just turned and walked off the set. The remaining hosts sat frozen in their chairs, staring at the empty space where Joy had been sitting just moments before. The audience was completely silent, unsure whether to applaud, gasp, or just sit in shock. Guy Fieri stood there looking like he had just been hit by a truck, his face pale, his hands hanging at his sides. Whoopi was the first to break the silence. She turned to the camera and said they needed to take another break, her voice steady but strained. As soon as the cameras cut, Guy turned to the remaining hosts and said he never wanted this to happen. His voice was different now, quieter, almost desperate. He said he came on the show to talk about food and have a good time, not to make someone quit their job. Sunny put a hand on his shoulder and told him this was not his fault, that tensions had been building for a while, and this was just the moment everything came to a head. But Guy shook his head. He said it felt like his fault, that he should have handled it differently, that he should have just let it go. Sarah Haynes said that both of them were passionate people, and sometimes passion leads to conflict, but that did not mean either of them was wrong. Alyssa agreed, saying that Joy had always been outspoken, and that was part of what made her great at her job, but sometimes that quality could create friction. Guy said he understood that, but he still felt terrible. He asked if someone should go check on Joy, make sure she was okay. Whoopi said the producers were already handling it, and right now they needed to figure out how to finish the show. When the cameras came back on, Whoopi addressed the audience directly. She said that what they had just witnessed was real, raw television, and that sometimes conversations get heated when people care deeply about their perspectives. She said Joy was taking some time to cool off, and they would respect her decision to step away for the moment. She did not say whether Joy was coming back or not, because nobody knew the answer to that question yet. Guy sat quietly, his hands folded on the table, looking like he wished he could disappear. Whoopi turned to Guy and asked him, in a much gentler tone than Joy had used, how he was feeling right now. Guy took a deep breath and said honestly he felt awful. He said he never intended to upset anyone, and he certainly never wanted to be the reason someone walked off a show they loved. He said that looking back on the conversation, he could see where things went wrong on both sides. He said Joy asked him a fair question, even if he did not like the way she asked it, and he probably got too defensive too quickly. Sunny asked him what he wished he had done differently. Guy thought for a moment and said he wished he had taken a breath before responding, that he wished he had tried to understand where Joy was coming from instead of immediately feeling attacked. He said that in his line of work, he is used to people critiquing his food, his restaurants, his shows, and he has developed thick skin over the years. But being questioned about how he treats people, That hit differently, because it struck at the core of who he believes he is as a person. Alyssa said she thought that was really honest, and she appreciated him being vulnerable about it. She asked if he thought there was a way he and Joy could have had that conversation without it escalating the way it did. Guy said absolutely, but it would have required both of them to approach it with more grace and less ego. He said he owned his part in that, and he hoped Joy could own hers too. But he also said he understood why she felt the way she did, because holding people accountable is important, and maybe he had been too quick to dismiss that. Sarah asked the audience if they had ever been in a situation where a disagreement spiraled out of control, where both people were kind of right and kind of wrong at the same time. Several hands went up. Guy nodded and said that was life. That was being human. He said the problem was not that he and Joy disagreed. It was that they both forgot how to disagree respectfully. He said he had learned that lesson the hard way today, and he hoped people watching at home could learn from his mistake. Whoopi said she thought that was a powerful message, and she thanked Guy for his honesty. Then she did something unexpected. She said she wanted to take a moment to talk about Joy, not as a co-host, but as a friend. She said Joy had been part of the View family for years, and her passion and fire were what made her special. She said Joy never backed down from a fight because she believed in standing up for what was right, even when it was uncomfortable. Whoopi said that quality was both Joy's greatest strength and sometimes her biggest challenge. The audience applauded, and you could see Guy nodding along. Whoopi continued saying that she did not know if Joy would come back to the table today, tomorrow, or ever, but she hoped that whatever Joy decided, people would respect her choice. She said Joy had earned the right to make that decision on her own terms. Guy spoke up and said he hoped Joy would come back, that the show needed her voice, even if that voice had just torn into him pretty hard. He said diverse perspectives and tough conversations were what made shows like this matter. Sunny said she agreed, and she thought what happened today was a reminder that live television is unpredictable and messy, but it is also real. She said, "Too often people see polished scripted content and forget that real people with real emotions are behind it." She said, "What happened with Joy and Guy was uncomfortable to watch, but it was also authentic, and maybe that was more valuable than a perfectly smooth interview." The audience applauded again more enthusiastically this time. Guy said he wanted to apologize not just to Joy, but to everyone watching. He said he let his emotions get the best of him, and while he stood by his right to defend himself, he could have done it better. He said he respected Joy even after everything that had just happened, because at least she was honest with him. He said he would rather have someone challenge him directly than smile to his face and trash him behind his back. He said that took courage, and he recognized that. Whoopi asked him if he would be willing to sit down with Joy again off camera to talk through what happened. Guy said absolutely in a heartbeat. He said he believed in second chances and in the power of conversation, and if Joy was open to it, he would love the opportunity to start over. He said he would listen more and react less, and he hoped she would do the same. Whoopi said she would pass that message along, and she appreciated his willingness to make things right. The show wrapped up shortly after that with the hosts thanking Guy for sticking around despite everything and thanking the audience for their patience. As the credits rolled, Guy stood up and shook hands with each of the hosts, exchanging a few quiet words with each of them. The audience gave him a standing ovation, which seemed to surprise him. He waved, smiled weakly, and walked off the set, leaving everyone to wonder what would happen next. The studio buzzed with conversation as people filed out. Some thought Joy had overreacted. Some thought Guy had been disrespectful. Most agreed that both of them had let their pride get in the way of a productive conversation. What everyone could agree on was that they had just witnessed something extraordinary, a moment of unscripted reality that would be talked about for a long time. Whether Joy would return to The View, whether she and Guy would ever reconcile, and what this meant for the future of the show remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. This was a reminder that even in a world of carefully managed images and scripted responses, real human conflict still breaks through. And sometimes that conflict leads to growth, understanding, and change. Or sometimes it just leads to someone walking off a set and never coming back. Only time would tell which one this would be. So, what do you think? Was Joy right to walk off, or should she have stayed and worked it out? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story like this. Because in the world of live television, you never know what is going to happen.